Hi, I'm Daniel Segal, your local senior care advisor at Total Senior, and I'm here today to talk to you about caregivers. There are two different ways to hire caregivers. One of them is to hire direct, and the other is to hire a caregiving agency that will take care of all the staffing for you. So I want to dive into the details of the pros and cons of each of those models so you can understand what you're risking in each and what you're getting in each. So let's start off with the licensed agencies. In 2015, the Department of Social Services in California started licensing caregiving agencies in order to keep track of how they're operating, what they're doing, making sure caregivers are properly trained to be caregivers going to the home. So they might go through training, including how to properly help someone transfer or lift, how to properly walk with someone and make sure that they prevent falls, how to manage their medications, how to help someone bathe. That includes getting in and out of a bathtub. That may seem simple, but in theory, you really need to understand how to really help someone the right way. These caregivers go through background checks for their criminal records, their driving records to make sure they're able and safe to drive your loved ones around town. And so these agencies that became licensed in 2015 started running a HR model where they find this large pool of caregivers and they meet with the family, they learn about the specific needs of an individual, and then they do their best to match the individual that needs care with the caregivers that can provide the care for them. Obviously, there's a geographic factor to that, and there's a budget, but there's also the right time shifts that work for each individual. And then there's that personality mesh to make sure that mom or dad or yourself has a caregiver coming in that you trust, that you're open to having in your home, you're comfortable them driving you, comfortable them going to the park or the mall, or your doctor's appointment, whatever else it may be with you. So these caregiving agencies help to solve this problem by staffing caregivers into the home. And sometimes you need someone for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it may be. And their job is to help figure out who's available and who's gonna be the right fit in your particular scenario. The costs for caregiving through an agency is higher than that of hiring directly. The reason you're paying higher costs is because, one, they're licensed. Two, they have that administrative staff to have that HR department to interview and pre-qualify caregivers. They're making sure they're training, they're paying for training for caregivers. They are in line with all labor laws. They are carrying liability insurance, workers' comp, they're paying proper payroll taxes. They are running all those background checks for you. They're paying their licensing fees with the Department of Social Services. There are fees associated with this. The beauty of working with a caregiving agency is that you have that safety net, you know that you can trust them, but also there are scenarios where caregivers have a flat tire. They become sick themselves. They have a family member who's ill and they can't make it to their shift. Well, if you're hiring directly, how do you know to fill a shift if someone doesn't show up? How do you find someone to help out? You really become a manager all of a sudden, whereas the HR department in a caregiving agency, they'll jump into their pool of caregivers and they'll find someone to fill that shift rather quickly to make sure that you or your loved one isn't left alone when you really can't be there by yourself and you need that support in the home. So caregiving agencies will obviously have a slight upcharge because they're carrying the cost of everything, and it could range anywhere from $30 to $40 per hour depending on the length of shifts and the area that the care is being provided in. When you're hiring directly, you can likely save money by finding someone that's willing to take minimum wage, but there are a few fears associated with that. You obviously haven't done your background check, and it's limited what you can do on your own to find out about their background, their experience, and whether the things they share with you are even true. You struggle to find someone to fill shifts when that individual can't make it there. So if you do need 24-hour care, you need to find 2 people or 3 people to fill 3 8-hour shifts or 2 12-hour shifts, and then they need days off, so you need additional relievers for those other 2 days of the week. You end up becoming a manager having to balance, in some cases, 5, 6 employees. What about break periods, meal periods, uninterrupted rest periods? The days of having live-in caregivers in California are long gone. The Labor Department is really strict about what they allow and what they don't allow. We've seen some horrendous lawsuits of family being exposed to liability for having someone that slips and falls in their home. They didn't have workers' comp. They didn't have the liability insurance. We've seen cases where caregivers that worked for a family for 3-4 years all of a sudden became angry because of a dispute and decided to sue the family because they didn't have break periods, they didn't have lunch periods. They had to wake up in the middle of the night to take care of mom for 20 minutes, but there are laws that prevent someone from having to get up and being paid properly for uninterrupted rest. So I always suggest that if you're going to hire directly, make sure you speak with an employment law attorney to get all the proper paperwork, procedures, and guidelines on how to staff properly to ensure that you don't have any problems down the line. And protect yourself, protect your family from being sued or having any of those problems come up in the future. So we always refer to licensed caregiving agencies. I firmly believe that it helps eliminate some of the fears, some of the liability, some of the issues, and a lot of the headaches associated with management. To have a caregiving agency or even a couple agencies that you work with that can help staff to take care of yourself or your loved ones. But if you're going to go by yourself and find people online or through word of mouth referrals, just be very careful to cover all your bases and protect your family. If you'd like to dive into discussing more details about caregiving and what staffing caregivers in your home might look like, please reach out to us and we'll look forward to having a conversation with you about your particular circumstances.